In the hushed silence of a snow-laden Ardennes forest on Christmas Eve 1944, where the bitter cold pierced like a bayonet and the weight of war hung heavy in the air, an American sergeant named Glenn D. George steered his rumbling Sherman tank through the shadows of a narrow firebreak. His headlights cut through the falling flakes to reveal the monstrous form of a German King Tiger tank, its crew oblivious in slumber, a behemoth of Nazi engineering left vulnerable by the very humans who manned it. In that frozen moment, George seized the opportunity, turning the enemy's might against them in an act of audacious bravery that would echo through the annals of World War II, a reminder that amid the machinery of destruction, it is the resolve of one man that can shift the sands of battle. This singular event, amid the larger tapestry of the Battle of the Bulge, encapsulated the desperation and ingenuity that defined the Allied response to Hitler's final gambit, where ordinary soldiers like George, facing overwhelming odds, forged moments of triumph that hastened the end of tyranny in Europe. The seeds of this extraordinary event were sown in the turbulent soil of a world engulfed by conflict, a war that had raged for over 5 years by the winter of 1944. It began on the 1st of September 1939, when German forces under Adolf Hitler invaded Poland, unleashing a blitzkrieg that shattered the fragile peace of Europe and drew the continent into a maelstrom of violence. The invasion, codenamed Fall Weiss, involved over 1 million German troops, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, overwhelming Polish defences in a matter of weeks. Britain's declaration of war followed swiftly on the 3rd of September, as did France's. But the early months were marked by a deceptive calm known as the Phony War, where tensions simmered without major engagements, allowing both sides to mobilize and prepare. That illusion shattered in the spring of 1940 as Hitler's armies swept through Denmark and Norway in April, securing iron ore supplies and naval bases, before turning westward in May with the invasion of the Low Countries and France. The blitzkrieg tactics coordinated airstrikes, armoured thrusts, and infantry follow-up bypassed the Maginot Line, leading to the fall of France in just 6 weeks. The British Expeditionary Force, along with French and Belgian troops, was forced into a desperate evacuation at Dunkirk from the 26th of May to the 4th of June, where over 338,000 men were rescued by a flotilla of military and civilian vessels under constant Luftwaffe attack, leaving behind vast amounts of equipment but preserving the core of the British Army to fight another day. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies that summer, from July to October, where the Royal Air Force's Spitfires and Hurricanes, guided by radar and ground control, repelled the Luftwaffe's attempts to gain air superiority, thwarting Hitler's plans for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, and marking the first major defeat for the Third Reich. Yet, the war expanded eastward on the 22nd of June 1941 with Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, involving over 3 million Axis troops in the largest invasion in history, pushing deep into Soviet territory but stalling at the gates of Moscow amid brutal winter conditions and fierce resistance, where millions would perish in brutal fighting across vast steppes and frozen tundras, from the sieges of Leningrad and Stalingrad to the tank battles at Kursk. The United States, isolationist at first, watched from afar until the 7th of December 1941, when Japanese carrier-based aircraft struck Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, sinking or damaging 8 battleships, including the Arizona and Oklahoma, and killing over 2,400 Americans, propelling the nation into the global fray with declarations of war against Japan and, in response, Germany and Italy. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's declaration of war mobilized America's industrial might, transforming factories into arsenals that produced tanks, planes, and ships at an unprecedented rate, with programs like the Lend-Lease Act supplying allies with vital materials. In the European theatre, the Allies comprising the United States, Britain, the Soviet Union, and others faced a formidable Axis alliance of Germany, Italy, and Japan, engaging in campaigns across multiple fronts. Early setbacks in North Africa, where Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps pushed British forces back to El Alamein, gave way to victories at the Second Battle of El Alamein in October 1942, where General Bernard Montgomery's Eighth Army halted the Axis advance, followed by Operation Torch in November, the Allied invasion of French North Africa, led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, which squeezed Rommel's forces between advancing allies. The invasion of Italy began in July 1943 with Operation Husky in Sicily, leading to the fall of Benito Mussolini and the mainland landings at Salerno and Anzio, where Allied forces slogged through mountainous terrain against tenacious German defences under Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, capturing Rome on the 4th of June 1944, but at great cost, with battles like Monte Cassino exemplifying the grueling attritional warfare. The turning point in Western Europe came with Operation Overlord, the D-Day landings on the 6th of June 1944, where over 156,000 Allied troops stormed 5 beaches in Normandy, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword under a hail of machine gun fire, artillery, and mines, supported by airborne drops and naval bombardment. American forces at Omaha Beach suffered the heaviest casualties, with soldiers from the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions wading through bloody surf to secure precarious footholds on the bluffs, while paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions scattered behind enemy lines to seize key bridges and roads. The operation's success owed much to meticulous planning, including deception campaigns like Operation Fortitude, which convinced the Germans that the main invasion would come at Pas de Calais, drawing away reinforcements. Once ashore, the Allies broke out from the bocage country dense hedgerows that favoured defenders and turned fields into kill zones in late July with Operation Cobra, where heavy bombers from the 8th Air Force carpeted the German lines near Saint-Lô with over 4,000 tons of bombs, allowing General Omar Bradley's forces to punch through the Panzer-Lehr Division. General George S. Patton's Third Army then exploited the gap, racing across France in a pursuit that liberated Paris on the 25th of August, 1944, amid jubilant crowds and the tolling of Notre Dame's bells, with French resistance fighters and Free French forces under General Philippe Leclerc playing key roles. Patton's armoured columns, fueled by audacity and speed, pushed to the Moselle River and beyond, but supply lines stretched thin, and the infamous Red Ball Express truck convoys, manned largely by African-American soldiers who drove non-stop for days, struggled to keep up with gasoline and ammunition demands, covering over 100 miles daily under enemy air attacks. By autumn, the Allies neared the German border, capturing key ports like Antwerp, but facing stiffening resistance along the Siegfried Line, a fortified barrier of bunkers and dragon's teeth. Hitler, cornered and delusional in his Berlin bunker, plotted a desperate counterstroke, drawing on reserves scraped from the Eastern Front and industry, including Volkssturm militias of old men and boys, to amass over 200,000 men, including elite panzer, divisions equipped with advanced tanks like the Panther and Tiger II, for Wacht am Rhein Watch on the Rhine, a surprise offensive through the Ardennes, the same forested region where Germany had triumphed in 1940 during the fall of France. The plan, personally devised by Hitler, aimed to split the British and American armies by driving to the Meuse River, capture Antwerp's vital port to disrupt supplies, and force a negotiated peace, buying time to focus on the Soviets. Launched on the 16th of December 1944 amid thick fog and heavy snow that grounded Allied air support, the attack caught the Americans by surprise, with thinly held lines in the sector manned by green troops from divisions like the 106th Infantry and resting veterans from units battered in the Hirchen Forest. German commandos in American uniforms, led by Otto Skorzeny in Operation Grief, sowed confusion by changing road signs, cutting wires, and spreading rumors of assassinations, with many captured and executed as spies. The Battle of the Bulge, as it became known for the salient it created in Allied maps, unfolded in the harshest winter Europe had seen in decades, with temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, snow drifts piling high to 4 feet in places, and frostbite claiming as many casualties as bullets, affecting over 15,000 Americans. Units like the 106th Infantry Division were overrun in the Schnee-Eifel, leading to the largest American surrender since the Civil War at Bataan, with over 7,500 prisoners taken. In the north, the 6th Panzer Army, including the 1st SS Panzer Division under Joachim Peiper, a ruthless commander known for atrocities, advanced toward the Elsenborn Ridge, committing horrors like the Malmedy massacre on the 17th of December, where 84 American prisoners from Battery B of the 285th Field Artillery Observation Battalion were gunned down in a field, an event that hardened Allied resolve and led to reprisals. The center thrust by the 5th Panzer Army targeted Bastogne, a crucial road hub, where the 101st Airborne Division, under Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, arrived just ahead of the Germans and held firm despite encirclement, replying to a German ultimatum on the 22nd of December with the defiant "nuts" that became legendary. Patton's Third Army wheeled north from the Saar region in a remarkable 90-degree pivot, marching over 100 miles in 48 hours through blizzards to relieve the besieged paratroopers on the 26th of December, with the 4th Armoured Division's Combat Command B breaking through after fierce fighting. But the fighting remained ferocious across the front, with American units like the 2nd Armoured Division clashing with the 2nd Panzer Division near Selles, destroying dozens of German tanks in what became known as the Pocket of Destruction. Amid this chaos operated the 740th Tank Battalion, a unit activated on the 1st of March 1943 at Fort Knox, Kentucky, under Lieutenant Colonel George K. Rubel, a West Point graduate known for his tactical brilliance, paternal care for his men, and insistence on open hatches for better visibility. Comprising mostly draftees from Texas and Oklahoma, the battalion trained in the sweltering Arizona deserts at Camp Baus, mastering the M4 Sherman tanks with their 75mm guns, as well as M10 tank destroyers and M7 Priest self-propelled artillery, initially as a secret Canal Defense Light unit with searchlights for night fighting, but reorganized upon arrival in Europe. Shipped to England in April 1944, they landed on Utah Beach in Normandy on the 11th of July, attaching to various divisions for flexible armoured support in the hedgerow fighting, where narrow lanes and thick vegetation turned advances into deadly ambushes. Nicknamed the Daredevil tankers for their bold manoeuvres, they fought through the hedgerows of Normandy, supported the breakout at Saint-Lô with close infantry coordination, and raced across France, destroying enemy strongpoints, bridging rivers under fire, and even capturing German vehicles to supplement their arsenal. By December, assigned to the 1st United States Army and attached to the 82nd Airborne Division on the Bulge's northern shoulder near Vielsalm, they patrolled the dense forests near towns like La Glaise, Caux, and Hotten, where they halted Piper's advance at Trois Ponts by blowing key bridges and ambushing columns with improvised tactics, including using captured 155mm howitzers for direct fire. The battalion's companies Alpha through Delta, plus headquarters and service, faced superior German armor like the Panther, with its high-velocity 75mm gun, and the Tiger I with its 88mm. But the King Tiger, or Tiger II, posed the greatest threat. A fortress on tracks weighing nearly 70 tons, with frontal armor up to 185 millimeters thick and an 88 millimeter gun that could obliterate a Sherman from 2,000 yards. Produced in limited numbers, only 492 in total, due to its complexity, resource demands, and Allied bombing of factories like Henschel in Kassel, the Tiger II was deployed in about 150 units during the Bulge, many in the 5th and 6th Panzer armies. But mechanical breakdowns, fuel shortages consuming over 500 litres per 100 kilometres, and narrow roads hampered their effectiveness, with many abandoned or scuttled. The men of the 740th, enduring rationed food like K rations of canned meat and crackers, sleepless nights in foxholes, and the constant dread of infiltration by Skorzény's commandos, were driven by camaraderie, a fierce determination to end the war, and stories of home that sustained them through the holiday season. Sergeant Glenn D. George, a tank commander in Delta Company from rural America, embodied this ethos. He had enlisted with a sense of duty, rising through the ranks via his mechanical aptitude and coolness under fire. Earlier in the campaign, near the Siegfried Line in September 1944, George earned the Silver Star for dismounting his tank under enemy fire to clear a minefield by hand, allowing his platoon to advance and saving numerous lives in an act of selfless bravery. Now, in the Ardennes, he led his 5-man crew driver, gunner, loader, bow gunner, and himself through patrols that tested their limits, navigating fire breaks and roads slick with ice, all while the holiday season evoked thoughts of home and family far across the Atlantic, with soldiers sharing makeshift celebrations like carols in foxholes or rare hot meals from field kitchens. Personal accounts from other veterans paint a vivid picture of the ordeal. Private Leo B. Woods of the 83rd Infantry Division endured 13 days buried in snow, suffering frostbite and shrapnel wounds, refusing amputation to rejoin his unit at the Rhine. Tech 4, Harold Pollard of the 4th Armoured Division, raced 150 miles to relieve Bastogne on Christmas Day, breaking German lines in 19 hours despite blizzards. And Private First Class John McGee of the 106th Infantry Division spent 6 days alone in the forest after his unit was overrun, before capture, and 7 months as a POW in Stalag 4B, surviving on meagre rations and escaping near war's end. These stories underscore the human cost, with over 76,000 American casualties in the Bulge, including 19,000 killed, but also the resilience that turned the tide. The hidden truth that enabled the capture of Tiger 332 revealed the fragility beneath the veneer of German invincibility, where technological superiority clashed with human exhaustion and logistical failings. The King Tiger, officially the Panzerkampfwagen Tiger, OSF, B or SD, KFZ, 182 was a temperamental beast. Its V12 Maybach HL230P 30 gasoline engine, producing 700 horsepower at 3,000 revolutions per minute, guzzled over 500 litres of fuel per 100 kilometres on roads, dropping to half that cross-country, and its overlapping Schachtelaufwerk road wheels, 9 double sets per side with torsion bar suspension, were prone to jamming with mud, snow, or debris, requiring frequent maintenance that strained overworked crews in the field. In the Bulge's sub-zero temperatures, batteries failed, tracks froze to the ground, and transmissions seized under the nearly 70-ton weight, leaving many Tigers abandoned or bogged down in the narrow, icy paths of the Ardennes. Crews, often young, conscripts aged 18 to 20, or battle-weary veterans pulled from the Eastern Front, where they had faced the Red Army's T-34-85s and IS-2s, suffered from fatigue after days of relentless advance without rest, their morale eroded by Allied air superiority once the fog lifted on the 23rd of December, allowing P-47 Thunderbolts to strafe columns, and the knowledge that the offensive was Hitler's last gamble, fueled by delusions of Wunderwaffen like the V-2 rocket, but hampered by shortages of everything from fuel to spare parts. Operation Grief's failures, many infiltrators captured and executed after trials, with 23 sentenced to death, further sapped confidence, as rumors of spies and saboteurs spread paranoia. On the American side, the 740th Shermans, though outgunned with their 50 to 80 millimeters of armor and shorter-range 75 or 76 millimeter cannons, excelled in reliability, producibility over 49,000, built across variants like the M4A3 with wet ammunition storage to prevent fires and crew ingenuity, with modifications like added sandbags or logs for extra protection. Tactics like hull-down positioning behind ridges, flanking maneuvers through forests, and the use of white phosphorus shells to blind enemies or star shells for illumination compensated for deficiencies, turning the tables in close-quarters engagements. The revelation in George's patrol was that even the mightiest panzer could be undone by complacency. The crew of Tiger 332, part of the 2nd SS Panzer Division's Heavy Tank Battalion, 501, attached to Kampfgruppe Piper, had halted in a firebreak near La Glaise after mechanical issues, perhaps a jammed track or low fuel, and chose to sleep inside the warm hull rather than post guards in the biting cold, a decision influenced by exhaustion after pushing from Tondorf through Stavelot. This oversight exposed a broader truth of the Bulge that the German army, once a juggernaut that conquered Europe, was now a shadow, reliant on surprise but crumbling under sustained pressure from Allied adaptability. Allied intelligence, though initially blindsided by the offensive's scale, ultra-decrypts missed the full build-up due to radio silence adapted quickly, with prisoner interrogations revealing enemy dispositions and fuel shortages, allowing counterattacks like Patton's relief of Bastogne. The hidden vulnerabilities extended to the Tiger's design. Its turret traversed slowly at just 6 degrees per second, making it susceptible to faster foes like the Sherman or M10 tank destroyer in ambushes, and its weight nearly 3 times a Sherman's limited bridge crossings to those rated for 80 tons, and complicated recovery, with the interleaved wheels trapping mud and requiring hours to clean. Stories abound of Tigers abandoned for lack of parts, like the 18 scuttled in La Glaise by Piper's Kampfgruppe on the 24th of December to prevent capture, or the dozens lost to breakdowns during the initial advance. George's encounter illuminated how individual alertness could exploit these cracks, turning a symbol of terror capable of penetrating 185 millimeters of armor at 1,000 yards with its 88 millimeter Cav K-43 into a trophy, much like veteran Harry Miller's account of refurbishing 3 tanks overnight at Spremont to halt Piper at Stoumont, destroying 3 Panthers in 30 minutes and blocking the road. Other vulnerabilities included poor weld quality due to material shortages, molybdenum replaced by vanadium, leading to spalling under artillery hits, as Soviet tests at Kubinka revealed, where 3 to 4 122mm shots at weld joints from 500 meters could destroy the tank. Fuel inefficiency meant many Tigers ran dry after short advances, exacerbated by Allied interdiction of supply lines, and the complex final drives failed after mere 50 to 100 kilometers in some units. In essence, the King Tiger's prowess was undermined by its own excesses, a microcosm of the Third Reich's over-ambitious engineering in the face of industrial collapse. The event itself played out like a tense thriller in the snow-shrouded woods, where every decision carried the weight of life and death, blending the raw terror of combat with moments of surreal triumph. On the 24th of December 1944, as twilight faded into a starless night blanketed by falling snow, Sergeant George and his crew rumbled along a firebreak, a cleared strip 20 to 30 meters wide, designed to halt forest fires, but now a vital corridor for armored movement in the sector near Coo and Beester, attached to the 82nd Airborne's defensive line along the Salm River. The forest was a labyrinth of towering pines, their branches heavy with snow that muffled sounds and reduced visibility to a few dozen yards, with the crunch of tracks on frozen ground echoing ominously amid distant artillery thuds. George's Sherman, an M4A3E8 variant with a high-velocity 76mm gun and wet ammunition storage to reduce fire risk after hits, carried a full load, 97 rounds for the main gun, over 6,000 for the machine guns, and extra fuel cans strapped outside, despite the risk of explosion. His crew, bundled in inadequate wool, coats, scarves and gloves scrounged from locals, scanned the periscopes for signs of the enemy, their breaths fogging the hatches in the cramped interior, smelling of oil and sweat. The patrol's objective was to probe for German breakthroughs, as reports of panzer activity swirled amid the fog of war, with Paper's Kampfgruppe having massacred prisoners at Malmedy just a week earlier, fueling American determination. Suddenly, around 8 in the evening, the Sherman's headlights, or perhaps a handheld spotlight, pierced the gloom to silhouette the massive Tiger 332, hull number 280243, built in September at the Henschel factory in Kassel, its turret marked with the insignia of SS Panzer Abteilung 501, a unit notorious for its fanaticism. The tank sat motionless, engine off, its 88mm gun pointed away, a sleeping giant weighing 69.8 tons, its wide 800mm tracks sunk slightly in the snow. George, peering from the commander's cupola with binoculars, whispered orders to halt, his heart pounding as he realized the crew must be asleep inside, lulled by the quiet and exhaustion after days of combat that had seen them push from the German border through brutal engagements. Rather than risk a direct shot that might bounce off the sloped 185mm frontal armor, impervious to the Shermans gun at range, he opted for subterfuge, drawing on training in captured vehicle tactics. "Fire a star shell," he commanded his gunner, who loaded an M64 illumination round into the breech, a parachute flare designed to light up night battles. The shell arced upward with a whoosh, bursting in a brilliant cascade of light that bathed the Tiger in an eerie glow, simulating flames or an explosion and casting long shadows across the firebreak. Panic ensued. The 5 German crewmen, commander, gunner, loader, driver, and radio operator scrambled from the hatches, disoriented and shouting in alarm. Convinced their tank was ablaze from a white phosphorus hit, they bolted into the open snow, exposed and unarmed, stumbling in the deep drifts. George swung the turret's 50 caliber Browning machine gun, its heavy rounds stitching the ground as he fired controlled bursts, cutting down 3 instantly, their bodies crumpling in the powder, with cries echoing briefly before silence returned. One was hit in the leg and captured, moaning in pain as American infantrymen from nearby patrols secured him for interrogation, yielding intelligence on Piper's fuel shortages. The 5th vanished into the trees, perhaps to report back or perish in the cold, evading pursuit in the darkness. The firebreak echoed with the gun's roar and the acrid smell of cordite, but no counterfire came. The Tiger was isolated, likely separated from its unit due to a breakdown. With the threat neutralized, George dismounted, Colt .45 pistol in hand, approaching cautiously as his crew covered him from the Sherman with coaxial machine guns trained. Climbing the Tiger's sloped glacis plate, slick with ice, he peered inside the open hatches. The interior was a marvel of precision engineering, with advanced Zeiss optics for the gun sight, 86 rounds of ammunition stowed in racks, a full 700-litre fuel tank, though minor damage from earlier American fire, perhaps glancing bazooka hits or artillery shrapnel, scarred the left side without penetrating the 80mm armour. The engine, a 700-horsepower Maybach HL 230 P45, hummed to life with a guttural roar as George, familiar with captured vehicles from Fort Knox training, started it, shaking snow from nearby branches and vibrating the ground. Exhilarated, he radioed Colonel Rubel at battalion headquarters in a command jeep near Houghton. "Sir, I've captured a King Tiger intact. I'm going to drive it straight to Berlin." Rubel, with driver-technician 4th grade Leroy Meyer monitoring the net amid static, chuckled at first but grew serious, ordering George to abandon it to avoid drawing attention or mechanical failure that could strand him behind lines. "Negative, sir," George replied defiantly, embodying the daredevil spirit that had seen the battalion improvise at Stoumont, where they refurbished bastard tanks overnight to destroy Panthers. "If another Tiger shows, I'll take it out with their own gun." Rubel relented somewhat, instructing him to secure it for recovery but continue the patrol, aware of the intelligence value. George split his crew, leaving 2 in the Sherman while he and the others manned the Tiger, its wide tracks nearly a metre across, churning the snow as it lumbered forward along Road N33 toward Koo, its torsion bar suspension smoothing the rough terrain despite the weight, gun traversed for threats in a surreal reversal where an American wielded Nazi steel against the Wehrmacht. For perhaps 30 minutes, he drove the beast, navigating turns with the double radius steering gear, its minimum radius of 2.08 meters, allowing tight maneuvers, but no enemies appeared amid the quiet woods, though distant flares lit the sky. The Tiger's thirst proved fatal, fuel depleted rapidly due to the inefficient engine. It ground to a halt near Kubista, its gauges empty after mere kilometers on the uneven path. Reluctantly, George abandoned it, marking the position with coordinates and rejoining his Sherman to complete the mission, the night's silence broken only by distant artillery and the occasional buzz of V1 flying bombs overhead. This capture mirrored other daring acts in the Bulge, like Staff Sergeant Frank Lembo's account of holding positions during Christmas counterattacks, or Joseph Jagodinski's experiences moving howitzers through snow under strafing, emphasizing the blend of fear and resolve that defined the battle. The aftermath of this daring capture unfolded with logistical hurdles and strategic gains that rippled far beyond the Ardennes, transforming a battlefield prize into a cornerstone of military intelligence. On Christmas morning, the 25th of December, Colonel Rubel reported the prize to 1st Army headquarters at Spa, emphasizing its intelligence value amid the holiday's grim festivities, troops sharing K-rations of cheese and biscuits, singing carols like Silent Night in foxholes while the battle raged, and receiving rare comforts like turkey dinners delayed by snow. The 740th, already credited with halting Piper at Houghton by destroying bridges and ambushing columns with bastard tanks scavenged from depots, added this feather to its cap, boosting morale as they claimed 69 enemy tanks destroyed in the Bulge, including 17 Tigers, through tactics like open-hatch vigilance and combined arms with infantry. 1st Army tasked the 463rd Ordnance Evacuation Company, a rear echelon unit specialized in vehicle recovery and manned by mechanics from across the US, to retrieve Tiger 332. Arriving at Koo that afternoon amid continued skirmishes, they found the tank frozen solid, its 800mm tracks bonded to the icy ground by the sub-zero cold that had claimed thousands to frostbite. Pouring gasoline around them and igniting it thawed the metal without damage, a risky but effective trick learned from earlier recoveries, though it risked explosion near the fuel tanks. Winching the behemoth onto a dragon wagon trailer designed for lighter 30-ton Shermans proved arduous. The Tiger's 3.755-meter width overhung the edges, flattening the trailer's 18 tires under 69 tons, with the M25 tractor's engine straining and overheating as it towed the load over slippery roads dotted with craters from artillery. Photos captured the ordeal. Ordnance men posing proudly in wool caps and overcoats, one painting 463rd ORD evac on the turret in white letters, a temporary claim to fame that would spark decades of debate over credit. After hours of effort, they transported it to Spa, Belgium, where a railway flat car awaited at the station, unloading it beside tracks amid curious locals and soldiers. Numerous images from this phase show Rubel and his staff inspecting the Tiger, with its Zimmerit anti-magnetic coating still intact and minor battle scars from prior hits. Loaded and shipped to Antwerp's port under guard to prevent sabotage, the Tiger crossed the Atlantic aboard a Liberty ship, navigating U-boat threats in convoys protected by destroyers, arriving in the United States in early 1945. At Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, engineers dissected it like a specimen, testing its torsion bar suspension for ride quality over rough terrain, firing its 88mm gun to measure penetration capable of piercing 185mm of steel at 1,000 yards with Pisgah 39-43 rounds, and analyzing vulnerabilities like the slow turret traverse of 6 degrees per second, the engine's overheating issues after prolonged idling, and the final drive's tendency to fail under lateral stress. Findings influenced post-war designs, such as the M26 Pershing's heavier and 90mm gun, and the emphasis on reliability over raw power in tanks like the M48 Patton, which prioritized mobility and crew survivability. The Tiger's left side was cut open for educational displays, revealing the interleaved wheels, Maybach transmission, and ammunition racks, and it was painted in primer grey for outdoor storage. Initially stored outdoors for about 40 years, weathering the elements, it moved to the Patton Museum of Cavalry and Armour at Fort Knox, Kentucky, in the 1980s, where it was cleaned, restored with authentic three-tone camouflage of dark yellow, olive green, and red-brown, and the number 332 repainted on the turret. A plaque initially credited the 463rd, but Harry Miller, a 740th veteran and George's friend who had helped refurbish tanks at Sprymont, corrected it in 1992 after visiting and confronting the curator, providing taped interviews from George and the battalion history book, leading to a revised plaque acknowledging the daredevils. George, who never saw the tank again after abandoning it, reacted with characteristic grit in his recording. "No, sir. By God, I got that S.O.B." The Bulge's consequences were profound. Over 76,000 American casualties, including 19,000 killed and 23,000 captured. But the German offensive collapsed by late January 1945, exhausting their reserves of over 100,000 men and 500 tanks, hastening the Rhine crossing in March by the 9th Armoured Division at Remagen. The 740th pressed on, supporting the 82nd across the Elbe, linking with Soviet forces at Torgau on the 25th of April, and liberating concentration camps like Nordhausen, where they witnessed the horrors of forced labour, their daredevil legacy etched in 69 confirmed kills and a presidential unit citation for Stoumont. Tiger 332, the only intact King Tiger captured, symbolised this turnaround, its recovery highlighting Allied adaptability amid chaos, and today it resides at the U.S. Army Armour and Cavalry Collection at Fort Moore, Georgia, formerly Benning, serving as an educational artifact with its cutaway side, drawing visitors to reflect on the event. The legacy of Sergeant Glenn D. George's solitary capture of a German tank endures as a poignant testament to the indomitable human spirit that triumphed over the mechanized horrors of total war, inviting reflection on how individual valor can illuminate the darkest chapters of history and shape the future of conflict. In a conflict that claimed over 60 million lives worldwide, reshaping nations and ideologies, this episode underscores the Battle of the Bulge as the Reich's final gasp, where American resilience, bolstered by industrial output that produced over 49,000 Shermans compared to Germany's mere 492 Tiger IIs, and diverse troops from farms to factories, overcame Hitler's vaunted Wunderwaffen, from jet fighters like the Me-262 to V-2 rockets. The King Tiger, once a harbinger of dread with its 88mm gun outranging most Allied tanks, became a classroom for innovation at Aberdeen, its study accelerating the evolution of armoured warfare toward balanced designs like the M48 Patton, which prioritised mobility, crew survivability, and reliability over sheer armour thickness, influencing Cold War doctrines. George's act, alongside battalion feats like repelling SS Panzers at Trois Ponts with improvised mines and artillery, or the overnight refurbishment at Sprymont that halted paper, exemplifies the daredevil's contribution to liberating Europe. From Normandy's beaches where they landed on Utah to Germany's heartland, supporting multiple divisions in 138 days of combat, though George passed on the 23rd of August, 1992. His Silver Star for the minefield clearance and the tank's display at Fort Moore preserve his memory, a beacon for future generations alongside other surviving Tiger IIs like the one at Saumur, France, or Bovington, UK. Other captures, like a Tiger I in Tunisia in 1943 or damaged King Tigers in Normandy during Operation Goodwood, pale in comparison to this intact prize, highlighting its rarity amid the abundance of abandoned hulks in the Ardennes, where paper left dozens behind. Reflecting deeper, this story reveals war's paradox. Machines built for destruction, like the Tiger II with its advanced optics and torsion bars, felled by human frailty such as crew fatigue or fuel shortages, yet redeemed by courage that fosters peace, as seen in veteran accounts like Ronald MacArthur's survival after being shot in the face near Bastogne, or Lou Novotny's tense fog-bound patrol, avoiding German lines. In the frozen Ardennes, where hope flickered like a star shell amid blizzards that grounded planes and claimed lives to exposure, one soldier's defiance affirmed that humanity's light endures, guiding us toward a world where such tales remain echoes of the past, not harbingers of the future, reminding us of the sacrifices that secured freedom.